So guys, news just broke. Andrew Tate and his brother has had their house arrest extended for another 30 days. And for folks who don't know what's happening with Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan, essentially Romanian authorities currently have them under house arrest. They've basically been detained here for a while now. He was in prison before. I believe he came out of prison. And, of course, lots of people celebrating this as a breakthrough for the manosphere and all these sort of groups claiming that he'd been set free, so to speak. Now, some people don't know who Andrew Tate is, so to remind them, Andrew Tate's sort of views on women, masculinity, entrepreneurship, this kind of pull yourself by the bootstraps message really became very kind of popular a few years ago, maybe during COVID or kind of just after that. And so worldwide success, lots of became very, very popular, was a feature on a lot of different podcasts. But of course, also started getting links to incel groups, this rise in sort of young men saying what we could probably say are dangerous things about women and other genders and things like that. So him being out of prison, but also being on house arrest. What have you guys read about this? What's going on there? Is this something to be? Are people celebrating this, or are people worried that he's got Twitter again?
Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think Andrew Tate's an interesting case in the sense that the official narrative is that the Romanian authorities have arrested him on charges of suspected human trafficking and abuse, specifically of young women, and involves 2 to 3 other individuals, including Tristan, his brother. I think the reactions speak for themselves. You have people who have outright revulsion to this idea that Andrew Tate is, free. This dangerous human being who corrupts young minds is suddenly free. And then you have people who see it as a sort of watershed moment, a proof of concept, if you like, that everything Andrew Tate stands for is being set free too. And many people who feel like they might not have a voice suddenly have a voice. But my question is it the right voice?
I mean, my opinion here, but no. I feel like he's a difficult character to deal with. Like I've only seen him in limited ways, but definitely the effect that I've seen on people. So I knew someone at university who used to watch a lot of his stuff, and this man was, he thought incredibly highly of himself, and his self-image was entirely different from reality. And it's quite interesting to see people of influence having that kind of effect on, and I mean it's specifically young men in this case, but on anyone. I think you see it with political figures mainly, but I think that Andrew Tate is one of these social influencers who is taking a political sphere, and it ends up getting pretty bad.
I think what's quite sad to me as well, from what I've seen about commentary around him, is how any talk of sort of male actualization gets lumped into the Andrew Tate sort of bandwagon. So if you have any message, articulated towards men about sort of being more driven, more focused, folks are like, Andrew Tate, and he sort of captured that whole market, right, of sort of speaking to young people. I know Jordan Peterson got swept into the same sort of Andrew Tate sentence, as is Ben Shapiro and all these other sort of right-wing commentators. Do you think it's a right-wing or left-wing thing, or do you think Andrew Tate is just articulating, just using sort of shock, if you like, to get people's attention?
I think the sort of like moment that we're in culturally means that a lot of people have drifted away from any sort of ideology or worldview that seeks to describe everything. So as opposed to seeing Andrew Tate as a right-wing figure, many young men probably don't even look at him like that, but just look at him as a sort of, male role model, like as a businessman, as this sort of depoliticized individual. But I think the issue is, because of the political implications of some of the stuff that he says about women, like they should bear responsibility for their own sexual assault or rape, it means that the reactions to that, which are similarly visceral, like meeting the viscerality of his comments with their own like sort of anger and emotion, means that a lot of the nuance is drowned out. Like you were saying about, male mental health, about self-actualization, around topics that we probably should talk about, instead get drowned out in the noise about.
But it does strike me though. Again, this is from what I've seen, and I haven't seen that much. That he seems to have hopped onto the culture war thing.
Yeah.
That's why I bring in the right-left dimension. The idea that, he and it's a shame that culture wars get so much attention, but it seems as though he articulates sort of a right-wing cultural war perspective. And so it feels like to kind of telling truth to power. He has this university where you're meant to go on to hear the truth about life. And really, it's just him saying right-wing talking points for the most part about, self-autonomy and sort of, making your own money and all these sort of things.
But dangerous speakers can come in all shapes and sizes, right?
Yeah.
Like we know that they don't just come from the right, they come from the left as well. They come from all over the place. It can be entirely non-political at all. Like you can know with people saying some really dangerous things, whether it be religious, political, providing it drives someone in a certain way to do something. It can always be dangerous if it's taken to too far of an extent, or in many cases when it benefits the person doing the speaking. And I think in Andrew Tate's case, like the popularity that he gained and the way that people look up to him, that's something that, when we're talking about role models, we rarely look at it from the perspective of the role model themselves, right? And from his perspective, he's getting all this love, all this affection from a group of people, and there's this other group of people who don't like him. And so and we were talking about it briefly just before we came on, and it's this idea of hate fueling him. And that hate fuels him to do more, and he thinks that he's doing the right thing because that's his worldview. But really, he doesn't. It doesn't fit with my worldview. It doesn't fit with, I don't think, any of our worldviees here.
Yeah.
No, I have a post of him.
Yeah. I thought so. I knew it from the start. I took one look at you and I went, this guy.
But you know what is fascinating, though, is his rise to power I find fascinating. Because I do think there's a point to be said about what social media incentivizes with sort of better coverage, if you like. And it seems as though today on social media, you have the more shocking you can be, the more ridiculous you can be, the more you can rail against the system, if you like, the system in inverted commas, the more attention you get. Because I think there was a time in which someone would say something sort of ridiculous and would also say that, well, that's ridiculous. But now on social media, it trends, it does well. The algorithms seem to promote that even more. So what I was even fascinated by is his rise to fame, because I do remember seeing him on like a podcast in the UK, a pretty kind of low-key podcast. He just said some thoughts about women that I just thought, whatever. Fast forward 2 years, and this guy apparently is the most Googled person on earth, and he's the most searched person. I'm like, how did this happen? And it seemed as though he was made almost wholly by social media clips. Namely 30-second, 10-second clips, him saying ridiculous things, people making content, reacting to him saying ridiculous things, creating this kind of content economy of reaction videos to his reactions, to their reactions. And you go, how have we allowed someone who universally would all probably say says ridiculous things to get so famous, to probably have made millions of young people? And now he's still the kind of, I think Daily Mail broke the news about him. Now we're watching sort of his every next step. Is he a beast created by social media?
I think it's too much to say it's just social media. I think there's studies that show, like, if you just hopped on TikTok as a new user, the degree of separation between the first post you see and some sort of content relating to Andrew Tate is ridiculously small. And I think because it can't just be social media, because you have people who do have an interest in this sort of, in these topics, in how to speak to women properly, in how to be a man, essentially, for a lot of people is, if you like, a lost art. So what I think you have is an interaction between, if you like, a lost generation who feel like all the models of masculinity that they have like fallen by the wayside. And at the same time, you have a particular cultural, political, and economic context, which means that for many people, the next couple of years look bleak. And so it becomes about, okay, what sort of figure, what sort of words, what sort of person can you attach yourself to? And Andrew Tate comes in that social media space that incentivizes this sort of short form, ridiculous, overblown, bombastic, like speech and rhetoric, and it pulls people in.
I mean, in times of, loss, uncertainty and fear, like times that, quite frankly, we're going through at the moment. You're always going to end up with people who are going to attach themselves to things, as you've just said. But you can't help but look further into the past and see it in similar capacities, right? So in in the Middle Ages, religion was it was huge, and you're always going to end up with some people taking that too far. And if you go out to places pre-social media, you can see these things occurring. You can see these things happening. The Crusades could be a great example, actually. Like the idea that it's reactionary. We're going to go and save the Holy Land, and as a result, we're going to end up, killing millions of people, essentially. These things have happened in the past before. I think that one of the best ways that I've been talked to about social media, and I've talked to other people about social media, and one of the most accurate things is that it's an accelerant. So not to bring in the Silicon Valley bank run, but it's the first social media bank run. And so that's why in the space of 2 days, everything disappeared. Everything just gets faster because everyone's interacting with each other. They don't have to go to a news source to gain this information. They don't have to go and wait for someone in authority to tell them. In fact, they go and pick their authority figures.
Yeah, it's like Me Too.
Yeah. Trump as well. Yeah. All of these things. It's all linked together.
It's fast paced.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we'll keep watching, of course. His house arrest has been extended by 30 days, so we'll see what happens next. But no doubt, folks will keep reporting on it, and we'll keep covering it too.
Another 30 days of cold saunas by the sounds of things.